This is approachanxiety.com, and I'm talking with Brad P. Brad P is the first guy that took me out almost a year and a half ago. He popped my cherry, as it were. And
it's not the first.
And I have a lot of respect for him, so I'm really excited about this interview because for a while I was working with him, and I've just learned so much from this guy, more from this guy than from anybody else in the seduction community.
Oh, thank you, man. It's a big statement.
So let's talk a little bit about, I would kind of like to hear from you. You went over last night a little bit more like the general steps that you took, like putting different parts of your game together. And I was kind of looking for a little bit more of maybe like a personal sort of how you felt starting out. Like, did you have approach anxiety doing your very first approaches? Like, were you all alone? Like, how did that go?
Yeah, I was shitting a brick, actually. The first couple times I did it, I had someone else helping me who was really outgoing, so that helped a lot. I would just kind of watch him do it a few times. A friend of mine would kind of just open a whole bunch of girls all in rapid succession. So once I had somebody walking me through it, that definitely helped. But if I would have had to go and do it by myself, the very first time, I would say, that would have been real tough. For me, it's like when I started out, I think I had more than approach anxiety. I also just had like some generalized social anxiety about just talking to strangers, not even talking to girls. I had some experience with girls. I had had girlfriends before, but just talking to a person I'd never met before was, a frightening thing for me. I used to have this really weird thing where I felt very uncomfortable and awkward whenever I was at like the counter of a drugstore or a bank or whatever, like dealing with the clerk, because that was a person who I didn't know, and I was like just nervous about. I don't know what I was nervous about, but I would call that, it's not even approach anxiety. It's just like social anxiety. And to me, approach anxiety is sort of, just one aspect of overall social anxiety. Doing cold approaches of women is very difficult. So you have to really have a good handle on your overall social anxiety to even get that far, in my opinion. What I was doing in the beginning is I had my friend helping me, and I had this job where I had to sort of like hand out flyers to people, and that also helped me get over some of this general anxiety and the approach anxiety as well. I would hand people the flyers. Sometimes I would look at it, stop to talk, and it sort of made me, feel better about things. I actually met a few girls that way. I had lines and stuff that I was learning and techniques for meeting women, and I would hand out these flyers, and then I would jump into my lines and my theories and all that stuff. So that was like the first 2 months, and I don't think I did any real cold approaching by myself at that time until I left New York. I left New York for 8 months and did cold approaching by myself.
So at first you had this guy going out with you for a couple months, showing you. Is that what you're saying?
We did it once or twice.
And was he a community guy, or was he just some friend?
No. Actually, I had never heard of the community at the time.
Okay.
He was just a friend of mine who was real outgoing, and we really only did it once or twice. I sort of drew a parallel between what he was doing and what I was trying to learn, where he didn't see it that way. He just was going out and having fun.
Okay.
And then I drew another parallel with approaching and handing out these flyers, where, a lot of people might not even draw that parallel, but to me, I did. It wasn't real approaching. It was sort of a preliminary process that I went through. And then when I went out of New York and started doing approaches every day, that was a whole different thing to me, and that was really scary.
Okay. Like in what way?
When you first walk up, it's just a fear of rejection. It's just you feel like it could be a disaster. It could be really embarrassing. It could be the kind of embarrassment you might think about over and over, and you might think about it in the middle of the day when you're doing something else, and it could make you feel really bad, and it could ruin a lot of other things that you're working on just because you feel so bad. Well, that's what I thought anyway.
Okay.
It could create negative feelings that you have to carry around with you all the time.
Right.
And that's what I was really afraid of, because I feel like I've had like embarrassing moments in my life. And, back then I hadn't really come to terms with a lot of them. And so I would carry around this negativity all the time, and it would make me feel bad. And what I've done since is I've started to tell people about these embarrassing moments and just have people laugh with me, and it sort of just makes me feel better. I'll tell you one of the stories.
Okay,
sure,
that's great.
Maybe people want to try this as well. When I was about 16 years old, I used to go to driver's ed in the morning. I was learning to drive. I was really excited about that. And the driver's ed was in the summertime. It was at my high school, and then I would go to basketball camp at the same place. So that was my routine. Driver's ed in the morning, and then basketball camp. I was really, into playing basketball when I was a kid. And there was like cute girls in my driver's ed car. I think it was like 3 girls and 2 guys, and they were all hot girls. And we're all stuck in a car together. Had no choice but to get to know them.
Right.
So I remember saying to myself, wow, like I haven't ever spoken to girls of this caliber before. They weren't from my school. The hot girls in my school wouldn't talk to me, really. They were from some other school. They didn't know how geeky I was. They just figured they'd talk to me. They had no choice. We were all in the same car. So I'd have to get a ride from my dad to driver's ed every morning. And my dad is this heavy drinker, and he wakes up all hungover, and he's a grouchy dude, So he'd be like driving me in his pickup truck, and I'd be like, as a kid I was kind of scared of my dad because he was just a drunken kind of wacko, So we were late. We were running real late, and we got to driver's ed, and I saw my car like kind of starting to drive away, and all the guys from the basketball camp were out there, and all the guys from the driver's ed were out there. And so I don't know what I was thinking, but while the car was still moving, I kind of just opened the door and jumped out of the car. Jumped out of my dad's car. My dad was like, wait! I was like, I gotta catch the car! And I jumped out and I fell on the ground, and I was like rolling on the ground, and the car drove away. The driver's ed car drove away. So I like picked myself up, dusted myself off, felt as embarrassed as I've ever been in my life. And I walk up to the building, and everybody from my driver's ed car is sitting there. It wasn't my car leaving. They saw the whole thing. All the hot girls saw it. It was the most embarrassing thing ever.
Wow.
That's kind of funny now.
Yeah, it's funny now, yeah.
But this is one of those things I used to think about, and I'd carry around that negativity. And so that same negativity would start to come out when I was getting approach anxiety.
Huh, okay.
So I had to go through a process of purging myself of some of those negative stories and negative events of my past in order to eliminate some of the approach anxiety, which is, I guess just was my way of dealing with it, and not having the seduction community's help and trying to figure things out on my own. That was my way of doing it.
What about new rejections? Like, obviously you'd go up to girls and you'd get rejections. So
Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
For some reason, those actually weren't ever as scary to me as just the potential of having it happen. When it actually happens, it's not even that bad. It's the potential disasters that were frightening to me. Like I'd have girls blow me out pretty bad, but I could usually snap back from it. I was getting resilient very quickly, and I had a pretty thick skin starting out. So I remember what I used to do is I would go in and I would say to myself, all right, if she tells me, to get lost, I'm just gonna look to my left and open the next girl that I see, no matter who she is, no matter what she looks like, and I'm gonna use the same exact line. Because I was trying to internalize the belief that if you get rejected, it doesn't really have that much to do with you. It usually has to do with the girls just being in like some kind of a bad mood, or just, not being open to this kind of thing, or not being friendly. So what I would do is whenever I would get rejected, I would just immediately open another girl in like less than 15 seconds. And what it did was it prevented me from starting those negative cycles of feeling bad. That's all I was trying to do, stop myself from carrying around negativity that could spread to other parts of my life. So I remember one time, when I go out to approach, I put on like a real big walk and a swagger, and I walked up to these girls, and my approach was really bad in the beginning sometimes, and I started talking to these girls, and they were just like, "Get out of here," and I kind of stuttered. I was like, "What?" And they were like, "Goodbye, get out of here." I was like, "Ooh, that hurts."
That happens, right?
Yeah, that happens,
sure.
right? And I just turned to my right, and I did the exact same girl, the next girls, and they all laughed and loved it.
And you use the same exact opener too.
Same exact opener.
That's great.
I didn't even stop to think of a new one because it's all about quickness. That's what stops the negativity from building up. You could beat yourself up if you wait. If you wait like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, you try to think of another opener, you try to look around for the next girl. While you're doing that, this embarrassment builds up, this negativity builds up, and that's what I was trying to avoid. So I didn't fear the actual embarrassment in the moment as much as I feared the potential negativity that I might carry around from it forever.
Okay.
So I guess I had a little bit different experience with approach anxiety than most people did.
So you were worried if you just maybe you just how you got rejected, if you hung back, that would start to internalize, and you didn't want that to happen.
Right. I was just afraid. Like, I can take 10 seconds of embarrassment. What I can't take, or what I don't want to take, is thinking about it again later, thinking about it the next day, then thinking about it the next week, and then having it become something I think about all the time.
Right.
I want to think about good things. I want to keep myself in a good state. Even when I'm just, sitting there in my house, not doing anything, I want to feel good about myself. I don't want to be one of those people who replays embarrassing experiences over and over in my brain. And because that's what I used to do. Like, for example, this jumping out of a moving car story. I used to replay that over and over in my brain. And the more you do that, it seeps into your self-image. It makes you see yourself as that clumsy person who always is getting embarrassed. And I used to see myself as that awkward, clumsy person. And when you see yourself that way, everybody else starts to see you that way too. When I was younger, I remember one time my basketball coach said to me, he was like an old guy. He used this old lingo. He'd say, "You know what? You remind me of, you're kind of like a one-way Corrigan. I have a feeling this season you're going to, like, I don't know, throw the ball in the other team's basket or something."
Thanks for the vote of confidence.
Yeah. But I was projecting that awkwardness and that cluelessness and just being a confused person. So he was sending it right back to me, And the same guy helped me with a lot of other things as well, but he was probably saying it to point out to me that I was projecting it out there, in his own old man, tough guy kind of way.
Right.
The same guy one day said to me, "Come over here. Let me see you walk." And I walked, and he said, No, you should never walk like that. Put your head up and walk like you're the biggest, most important thing around here. I'm Brad, and no one can fuck with me. That's how you walk. And it was a great tip, because what you send out to people is really what they're going to believe for the most part.
I've seen you in action. I've seen your game, and it's amazing to see you in action. It's some of the most aggressive game I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it's great because this is how I describe you. You combine like this kind of sixth grade puerile fun guy with like really aggressive game. But I've seen you. It's like bam, bam, set after set after set.
Yeah.
Opener after opener. I mean, I remember the first night I went out. I think maybe I went out with you. I opened like probably 10 sets, maybe less. And at the end of the night, I felt like I had been through a title fight emotionally. I was like, oh my God, like how do they do this? But so does that just come with? But first of all, one other thing I wanted to mention is you also said sometimes you'll do stuff like you'll use something really, really harsh, like, have we had sex? Oh no, like an opener like that, and because you want a result right away, you either want to be in or out.
Right.
Yeah,
so this is a little more advanced. Now that I've evolved and I've been through this whole approach anxiety thing. My view on it has changed. People could try doing this as beginners. I do recommend it to some people if they have a thick skin. You have to develop a thick skin. You can't be at the mercy of what everybody else thinks of you and letting your emotions get all wrapped up in rejections and stuff like that. You're out to do what you want to do. You're out on your mission, and your life is your mission. So what I do now is how I view approach is I'm going to open with something that makes a strong impact. The reason I do that is because it's very easy to get girls to talk to you. Girls are friendly people, I think, and 75% of the time they'll be willing to talk to you. But most of the time, if you use something that's just to get her to talk to you, you don't know if she's interested or not. And so you have to spend 20 to 30 minutes sitting there and doing your game, whatever it may be, just to find out if she's interested, to see if you're compatible. So I don't want to spend 30 minutes talking to a girl who's not compatible with me. So what I try to do is I filter the girls right in the opener. And I want the girls to reject me if we're not compatible. If she doesn't get the joke, I want her to filter herself out by rejecting me. So now I view rejection as girls filtering themselves out. So for example, if I go up to a girl and I say, I think I know you. Did we have sex last week? Because you look familiar and I don't remember that well. So if I say that to a girl, it's a joke, and I think it's a great joke, actually. I think it's really fucking funny. And if she doesn't get it, then I immediately know that she doesn't really have that much of a sense of humor. She's not really going to be fun for me. She's not really quite what I'm looking for. So if I do that 10 times and 5 girls just tell me to get lost, they saved me 5 girls times 20 minutes each. They saved me 100 minutes. That's almost an hour and a half. That's more than an hour and a half by my math.
So you don't go around with this idea that I can get any girl. I'm like,
it's not about getting any girl. If you wanted to try to get any girl, I think you'd waste a lot of time that way. You wouldn't end up getting the most high quality you could. It's very hard to tell what's going on in a girl's head right from the get-go. Girls are really smart. They put on their best clothes. They put on their best social face. They're very socially smooth. A girl who's not even that cool can convince you that she's pretty cool sometimes. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get these girls to show their true colors. And I don't want to get every girl. I want to get a very specific type. I want to get really fun girls who are hot and are going to be adventurous. And so I've built my system to filter anyone else out. If a girl's like really uptight, she's filtered out immediately because she's rejecting me. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the uptight girls to not waste my time. So this is way beyond approach anxiety.
Okay, that's great. Yeah. I mean, that's awesome. Okay, let's say I've got a lot of approach anxiety.
Okay.
Like you said like that kind of opener is good for like more advanced stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of advanced.
So what, you've coached guys maybe that have like huge approach anxiety.
Sure.
What are a couple of things you'd recommend to?
What I would recommend, what I used to recommend is going and opening and just using some more simpler things. Like I'll give you an opener right now that these guys can use and they'll never get blown out with it. It pretty much opens every time. I call it the psychologist opener. It goes like this. Hi, my name is Brad and I'm shy. My psychologist told me that I should try to talk to 5 new people every day to get over my shyness. So I decided to talk to you because you seem nice. So that's the opener.
Okay.
Nobody's going to blow you out with that. She'd have to be a real asshole to blow you out with something like that. So something like that, she's going to talk to you, but it doesn't necessarily build attraction, and it's not very high impact. It's just to get over your approach anxiety. Will you meet the girl of your dreams using something like that? Probably not. But you will get to talk to a lot of girls, and you'll get to improve your social skills. And that's what we're looking for in the beginning. So what I used to recommend, and I still think it's a good idea, is low impact openers. Psychologist line or something like just physical, like just walk out, put your hand up and try to have a thumb war. Then you don't even have to speak. Something like an opinion opener is a little more, it's easier to do. Hey, I want your opinion. What do you think of guys who wear ties with a hole in it?
Right.
So that's something that most girls will weigh in and give their opinion. but it doesn't start a strong attraction, and it doesn't tell you if she's compatible. It doesn't filter out uptight girls. All it does is get you started. These days, I'm actually developing a different kind of curriculum for approach anxiety, which deals with social anxiety as a whole. And what I suggest to people is that they try to figure out, is it approach anxiety that you're dealing with, or do you actually have social anxiety? Because the average person actually has a lot of social anxiety. The way we're brought up in a very protected environment, we don't need to talk to new people. We don't learn it socially. We don't learn how to effectively deal with new people. It's something most people have to learn. Think about it. If you are born and you live with your parents and they protect you for the first 5 years, and you go to school, and that's probably the first time. The first day of school is the first time we have to deal with new people. But then you have the same people all year. So you have 1 day of meeting new people and 364 days of the same people. And then the same thing starts to happen in the workplace. In urban areas, you do tend to meet more new people, but in small towns, you see the same people your whole life. So in order to reduce social anxiety, there are easier steps you can take than just approaching women. For example, let's say there's a scale of 1 to 10. 1 being low social anxiety, 10 being high social anxiety. You need to know how far along in that scale you are. If you only have a little bit of social anxiety, it's going to be really easy to approach women. So let's rate some tasks in terms of their difficulty.
Okay.
Going up and asking someone what time it is. That's not that difficult. It's a 1 out of 10. Asking someone for directions. That's a little bit harder because you have to talk back with them. Maybe that's 2 out of 10. Having small talk with a store clerk. That's like a 3 out of 10. Going up to a group of new people and telling them a joke. That's pretty hard. That's like an 8 out of 10. Walking into a bookstore where everybody's being quiet and doing a moonwalk around a group of people that aren't even paying attention. That's really hard. That's embarrassing. That's acting like an asshole. That's a 10 out of 10. So you can do different things to reduce your social anxiety without even approaching women. Approaching a woman that you don't know, I think, is like an 8 out of 10. So what's going on in the seduction community right now is a bunch of guys that have a lot of social anxiety are trying to start from one of the most difficult things.
Right. Yeah, you see that. There's a lot of guys with social anxiety.
There are. Yep. Yeah. That's why they're here. So we're saying to these guys who can barely get past maybe something of medium difficulty, now go do the hardest thing. So that's why I'm trying to design a curriculum to reduce general social anxiety in addition to approach anxiety. It's still in the works, so stay tuned for that.
Cool. I mean, another factor too seems to be you being attracted to this girl can cause more social anxiety.
That's a great point.
Right? And so, I mean, I could maybe like, I'm not really attracted to, say, really buxom Playboy looking models. It's not my type of girl. So maybe I could talk to a girl like that and not really be that nervous. Yeah, maybe a little, but in other words, like maybe a girl that I'm not that attracted to, I could talk to fairly easily.
Right. So like on the other hand, maybe if you saw like a wafy type girl,
yeah, like
that would make you more nervous.
Like some artsy girl that I'm into,
yeah, artsy nerdy girl, yeah, that would make you nervous. But another guy might be the opposite. He's nervous about the buxom girl.
Yeah, so it seems in a way to be tied to kind of like sexual attraction too, in a way.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think it's really, really great point. Yeah.
I mean, maybe because more is on the line because I want something out of it. Maybe that's sort of.
Yeah, you're placing a lot more value on it. You don't know when you'll find another girl who looks like that. You feel like she's hard to get. Absolutely. Yeah.
So this is one, this is something brilliant I heard you say at the Lair meeting when you talked at the Lair meeting I was at. the whole month was, we're talking about escalation here
Sure.
at the meeting, and you said one of the things is if you have difficulty going up to women you don't know and talking to them, that can affect how aggressive or how solid you're physically escalating with this girl will be.
Of course, yeah.
So and I thought that was great because it's like if you have a lot of approach anxiety, maybe you can get by some of it by drinking a lot and
Sure.
or whatever. But if you still have that approach anxiety, it's gonna screw up the rest of your game.
Absolutely.
Right? Can you talk more about that or?
Yeah, sure. If you have approach anxiety, essentially what it comes down to is a lack of courage. There could be many reasons for it. Fear of embarrassment for most people, fear of physical danger. Maybe her boyfriend's going to come out and kick your ass. That's what you're worried about. For me, it was a fear of having to carry around additional negativity. So whatever the fear is, it comes down to not being able to do what you want to do because you're scared. That's a lack of courage.
Okay.
So if you have approach anxiety, you're going to have anxiety with a lot of other things. So you need to address the overall issue of you lacking courage. We all know that that's one of the things that women are drawn to, guys who have courage, guys who have a lot of balls. And the most important thing that I try to do when I'm teaching people is, I do try to give them the right lines and routines and that stuff. But more importantly, I try to give them the courage and the thick skin and the balls to go out and do this stuff and not be scared. So if I can teach you to approach women and not be afraid, you'll carry that courage with you all the way through the interaction. Because escalating is not always as scary as approaching. It depends on the guy, it depends on the girl, it depends on the situation. So what we're trying to do when we do seduction workshops and things like that is what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to give people the intangibles. And if you have a lack of courage, that's an intangible that you need to fix. You need to get some balls, because if you can, that's going to help you through the entire interaction. And that's going to help you more than the lines and routines and things like that.
So how do you get some balls if you don't have some already?
If you don't have some already, you have to come out of your comfort zone and do the things that scare you. You have to expose yourself to the fearful situations over and over again until they don't affect you anymore. And sometimes that takes the form of doing an approach. But hey, if that's too scary for you, do something easier. And work your way up. You have to work your way up. You have to progress. But you don't necessarily have to start. It's great if you can start with just approaching women. But like I said, that's really hard. You might want to address some of your general social anxiety or your lack of balls before you can do that. So maybe everybody has different things that scares them. I'm scared of heights. I went parasailing. That was so scary for me. But when I got off, I had a lot more balls than when I got on. You know what I'm saying? So you need to start facing your fears and coming out of your comfort zone. Most people never leave their comfort zone. We can live our whole lives in a comfort zone in, an affluent country like America. That's what everything's built for. Everybody wants to give you your latte just the way you want it at Starbucks and not have to have you get stressed out, or everything's coming to us on a silver platter in this day and age, so we never have to leave our comfort zone.
Do you still experience fear?
Yes. This is really funny. What happens is, like, when I teach a class, I get in a certain state, and I'm not afraid of anything. I could run through a wall. But in other moods, sometimes I still fear, like, simple things. I was at the library the other day picking up a book on social anxiety, and I was afraid to ask the librarian where to find the book.
Wow.
So, for 30 seconds I was afraid, and then I went and did it, But the twinge is still there, So maybe social anxiety is something that never goes away 100%. You just have to find new ways of working through it.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of work in this area, getting comfortable talking to women, getting confident, and sometimes it feels like 3 steps forward, 1 step back.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I won't go a couple of days, or I'll go a couple of days maybe without approaching a girl because I get like super busy, which I hate to do. I like to do it every day.
Right.
And then all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, I feel awkward going out, or I feel like. So my question to you is, do you feel that these changes are permanent, or is this something that you keep having to do, or what's the?
I feel like you get new strategies to work through your social anxiety. Some of it goes away, and some of it tries to pop back up again. But when it pops back up again, you have a better strategy for getting through it. So it effectively disappears as long as you're smart enough to remember your strategies and what helped you get into the right state of mind before. It tries to come back, and it's just a matter of how good you are at keeping it away, at keeping it from affecting you. I know that's a complicated
that makes
answer.
sense. That's great. That's great. So talk about your website a little bit and what you do.
Okay, sure. I run the Underground Dating Seminar in New York City, and we just went nationwide. I've been traveling all over the country, teaching people. I have people all over the world who use my system and use my CDs. Actually got a guy, I don't know if I told you this, guy's flying in from England tomorrow to train with me Saturday and Sunday. So my company's just gone international. I have assistant coaches, and everything's going great. My website is createattraction.com. And at that website, you can get my CDs, you can get my ebooks. And even if you can't get to New York City, I might be able to get to you. So you can email me. My email's on the website. And even if you don't have the cash to maybe, rent me out for a day, you can still get my CDs, which are pretty reasonably priced. And if you work with those for a while, you can get fantastic results. I have students who have made amazing improvements. Guys who we thought would never get a date. I thought they would get a date, but people were saying, I don't know how you're going to help this guy.
I mean, I started off by going to your seminars. That's how I really learned a lot of the basics.
Yeah.
Cool.
But, createattraction.com. You can send me an email. I read them every day. Thanks, Eric.
Thanks.